Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Higher Line Podcast. We're out in the woods with D.
Yep.
How do I really say your name?
Dehan Courtney.
Dehan. And you are with what company?
Just Dehan Courtney logging with horses.
That's lovely.
I kept it simple.
You're going to show us these beautiful girls moving logs around in the woods today.
That's correct. Yep. It's my winter job.
Welcome to another episode of the Carry Trainer Higher Line Podcast. Oh, hey guys. So, pretty cool episode of the Higher Line today. Driving over to a gentleman's house who's a professional logger, except unlike most professional loggers, he uses horses to pull the logs, timber out of the forest. Really interested in it. I saw his team working one day last summer, and so I reached out to him and said, hey, would you be interested in sharing what you do? And he said, sure. So we waited till the leaves were down so these big old horses can be seen better in the woods and we're not getting stung up by mosquitoes and stuff. So let's go check that out and see what it looks like for a guy to use draft horses to pull timber out of the woods. Horse crossing, it looks like we must be here. Yep, this be the place. Well, I guess you know you're in the place when one of these big dudes is looking right at you. That's cool.
It's unreal. The difference. Pick one up. They're fairly light.
I played with them in the store, but I haven't run one. The biggest saw I have anymore is a older 460, like 8-year-old 460, the 46.
I first saw the 500 when they released them in Europe, and we couldn't get them over here until just a few years ago. So I actually imported one from Germany 3 years before we could get them here, I think, and fell in love with it. And
I love it.
Imported two more.
Let me just see what that looks like. Even if we're like, yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect.
He's quite a bit taller than me.
Yeah, he is pretty tall.
I got my
Like a whole
flat
head.
So, hey guys, we are out on site today with, you say your name?
Dehan.
Dehan. And you're a professional horse logger?
Yeah.
So if somebody is in need of horse logging, why would they call you?
So there's a lot of different reasons. We're in the Northeast, so pretty dominant hardwoods, good timber. There's a million reasons. So the main reason what I have found here is a lot of my jobs are century owners, so family farms, family owners that have owned their property. They're going to pass it down to the next generation. They understand the value of what you leave behind more so than just what you're pulling out. So a lot of my jobs are people that understand that if you do it properly, you can continue to do it and have it healthy and producing woods. And then we're also in very, very good hunting country. So I have a lot of hunters that use me solely for the fact that we can do select cuts, we can do food plots, we can do small lots, with focuses on improving their woodlot for wildlife, whether it be birds or deer, or rabbits, squirrels. You can kind of.
So you've got some knowledge on that. You're not just in the woods just whacking stuff.
Right. No. I my niche is in doing a very select type harvest.
How do you know about that stuff?
I don't know. I grew up with it. My dad had a sawmill. Right. Camera. My dad had a sawmill when I was little, and a dry kiln. And we've been on this farm since I think 1825.
1825.
So we've been here a long time.
You're very old.
Yeah, not me personally, but we've been here a long time.
So like great grandpa, great grandpa
of the land is big in our family.
Okay.
We've been here and kept buying more land around the original farm.
So if like somebody owned property around here and they have timber and they needed your service, you come in and you strategically.
Right. Ideally, you're right. Ideally, you're strategically picking which trees come out. Now, I mean, there's a million different ways to do it, and each person, each job is completely different. And I will do a conventional harvest, a fairly heavy harvest if that's what they're looking for. I'm not only going to do a very select harvest. That's what I prefer to do, and that's what I recommend and try to guide towards. But if they want a heavy harvest and they want it done with horses, I'm more than willing to make some extra money and actually pull out lots of timber. But my niche has been in a proper harvest for the generations and ahead, with a heavy focus on what I'm leaving behind, maybe more so than what I'm actually pulling out.
I like that. So we're going to be able to see you work the horses. Can you talk to us about your horses?
Sure. So back when I first got into horse logging, there was really, this would have been, I don't know, 8 years ago now, 7, 8 years ago. There was no, channels about it. There was no, you couldn't really see about it. There was no really way to, learn. Like now you can go online and you can just find videos and people and teachers. And, back then it was basically kind of fly by the seat of my pants. And in Europe, these are European Brabants, which is the founding breed of the American Belgian.
Okay.
So in early 1900s, they were identical horses. Since then, the Americans bred them sorrel and taller, and the Europeans kind of kept them shorter, stockier, the way they were back then.
Big bodied.
Very heavy, but shorter. They're 16 hands, whereas American Belgians are 18. So they're just as short, but just as heavy, if not heavier than, a lot of the drafts, the Percherons and the Belgians, which I like because you can harness them in the trailers. You can run through the woods without hitting branches as much. I think the short horses pull hard, don't have as many joint issues. But European Brabants there was a few channels on YouTube, and they were over in Europe because over there, it's much more important to be stewards of the land because they don't have, thousands of acres of timber, and people don't own that much land. So in Europe, horse logging is still a thing because they have to be very good about how they harvest the little acreage that they have. So when I was looking, the only horse that was doing horse logging was, Brabants. So I started looking for a team of Brabants, and my first team was a team of Percherons. I had a 19-2 and a 17-2 Percheron. And that's
so when you say 19, 17, what does that
4 inches.
mean?
Each hand is 4 inches.
Okay.
Because it went by, the average hand is 4 inches. So back in the old days, you could measure a horse by.
And where are you measuring on a horse?
So you measure when they have their head down right to the back of their withers.
Okay.
The tallest point with their head down, basically. But that's how I got into the Brabants was, they were the only ones horse logging, and I wanted to be a horse logger.
Where do you find a breeder for such a special horse? How far away did these guys come from?
These two are actually both imported from Belgium.
Oh, wow.
We imported them both a couple years ago now because they're hard to find. We're probably one of the largest breeders in the country for them. We've got about 30 horses total.
Oh, wow.
Between gypsy banners and these guys.
So now you're the person if somebody wants these.
Yeah,
things.
you can. Yep, we've got foals for sale, and we do breedings. And but there's scattered throughout the country. In the last 5 years, the breed's gotten much more popular, much more recognized. So now there are breeders down south, out west.
Were you a horse person, a horseman, before you started doing the horse logging?
A little bit, yeah. I did not grow up with horses. It wasn't until I was early 20s before I got into horses. I had a friend, they had horses on their farm, and I got into it. We were doing a lot of riding, we were doing a lot of just playing around, screwing around with horses, and it got to the point where we needed more horses because they didn't have enough for all of us. And I was like, I want the fastest horse I could possibly find. So I wanted to beat her sister on her off the track thoroughbred. So I went and tried a couple thoroughbreds, and they were the fastest horses and maybe a little crazy. And I ended up buying a big old 17-hand Percheron. And that kind of started me on the draft horse kick because we would run 3 or 4 people bareback on her through the fields, having Nerf sword battles. And I just fell in love with the quietness of the big big drafties, and the fact that you can, you know, drag stuff with them. And I got into pulling sleighs, pulling snowboards, pulling car hoods in the snow, just
Hillbilly stuff.
yeah, hillbilly stuff. And then I rebuilt a sleigh, and I just fell in love with the drafts, and the rest was history. We just kind of went crazy with them.
Where does something like this come from? Did you build this?
This one here was custom built by a local Amishman. He's 3rd generation horse logger, and it's got a lot of little things that you don't find on the average cart. There are carts made by Pioneer, Whitehorse. There are different places who make logging carts you can buy. I've got a commercially made one, and they're really good carts. But this one here, if we're doing big timber out here, you can do a bigger log.
Hold on. We're getting some B-roll.
Yep.
That's a lot of pee.
Everything's big with them.
That's a lot of
pee, a lot of poop. A lot of food goes into them.
So that's a female.
But they can pull. Yep, they're both. These are both bred mares. Yep. The one on the right, Barberry. All of them are horse names. I mean, or tree names. So I name all of them. Barberry, Rum, Beech, Chestnut, Ash, Barberry.
They hearing their names?
Maggie, Magnolia, probably Sage. So basically, I got them all tree names.
That's cool. So you were telling me about the cart.
Yeah, right. The cart. So this one was made by an Amishman. It's a little more specialized for, I don't know, each horse logging is a very unique business, I suppose, because it's very localized in terms of how you do it. So if you are in Wisconsin, you're going to be doing it a completely different way than you are here if you're down south, just because the lay of the land is different, the timber is totally different, the size of the logs are different, your lengths of skids are different. So in our we have very large hardwoods here. The big wheels, they roll over top of stuff. They give you the horses a better, in my opinion, a much better. We can look at my other one too. It's just smaller.
Very sturdy looking.
Yeah, they're heavy. It's 1,200 pounds probably. But it's hard. My wife hates her logging with this one because getting onto the seat is really annoying for her. Me, I just jump up there, but you know, she hates it because it's too tall. So she really prefers the other cart.
What are you, about 6'8"?
6'7".
6'7"?
Yep. So for me, this is my favorite cart. I like my other cart. I can put 3 horses on it so I can have more power. It's like a turbo, I call it, when I do 3 abreast. But you have to pick your woods. If it's, you know, very thick woods, you can't do 3 abreast because they don't fit. And part of the joy of horse logging is you basically make like goat paths or deer trails. So you can snake through the woods without damaging the trees, without cutting a big wide 12-foot path. You kind of let the woods dictate where your paths go, so that you're not doing it. It's the whole point of horse logging, in my opinion, is, you know, less damage to the woods. So I mean, you can do it without caring, and it's going to do less than a machine. But if you do it well, you can do a very good job, and you can hardly tell you were in there.
I like it. Can we see the other cart?
Yeah, it's just hiding in the barn.
So this is a commercially purchased.
This is a Pioneer log cart, probably the most common commercial log
Yeah, I
cart.
think I've seen these something like this in a video.
Yeah. These are the I would say the most common commercially made cart, and they're a very good cart. It's well built. This was my first cart I bought.
So
when I
much
started.
more compact.
Yep. Lower to the ground, and this is, you know, it's got the offset tongue in it, so you can do 3 wide. But I can just 5 minutes pop it apart, put it back together for 2. But it's lower to the ground, quicker. You can jump on and off faster, but you just don't have the pickup, which gets the log off the ground, so it's easier for the horses.
I see.
So it works well, but in the really big timber, I like the other one.
Is this? Go ahead.
Yeah, unless you need the power and it's wide enough, you can run 3 abreast, and this one's fun. I like them both. So we have to make a lot of hay.
So now you're growing your own hay.
Growing our own hay. Yep.
Are you using horses to do any of the farming?
I have not yet. Western PA is notoriously bad for hay weather.
Okay.
So again, the Amish do it, but we're doing such a volume of hay that we hardly ever get 3 days in a row without rain. So, you know, with a disc vine, I can knock down 30 acres, 40 acres in a day, and 3 days later bale it up. With the horses, you can't run. I mean, you can do it, and I'm going to start this year probably just knocking down hay.
You're going to consume a bunch of hay running them to
It's I would like to use the horses more, and I'm going to start because now that we've been basically growing the farm pretty drastically. So neighbors stopping to talk.
We're gonna follow you off into the woods and watch you
Go find some trees.
find some trees. All right.
Spin them on a dime, back up to it, then I'll pull out the way of the cane.
Okay.
But these are both young horses. They're not veterans by any means, so you kind of set yourself up for success. Horse logging in general is probably one of the, if not the most dangerous profession in the country, in the world, maybe. I mean, not there's others, but it's very dangerous. From dropping the trees, and then you add a living animal into the mix that has a mind of its own, that wants to do what it wants to do. And it makes it more dangerous, in my opinion. So you set yourself up for success. With the young team, I'll always point them towards me when I'm hooking up to the log, hooking the chain around, so that if they wanted to do something, they'd be coming at me, so I could.
You can see what's happening.
I can see what's happening. They're less likely to want to go away because they know when I'm in front of them, they're not supposed to do anything. But when I'm behind them, sometimes they think, oh, I'm supposed to go, especially young horses. So with the young stock or horses that are prone to want to go, some of mine are much hotter than other ones. I'll always point them at me so that I can work on what I need to work on without like second guessing myself and then chasing a team. I've lost them. I've had teams run through the woods and
oh no.
So I've done everything wrong plenty of times. But the little things you learn to try to make it successful for them and for you is just point them at you whenever you're doing something that you're not right around their range.
What type of trees are we pulling out of here today?
So this is not how you want to log. Storm damage is probably the most dangerous way to log. We had a big storm come through this spring and just level this section of woods, which is kind of sad because I like to pick which trees come out, and I actually just went through here last year and kind of picked what trees I wanted out. So I had already prepped this woods for how I wanted it to grow, and then Mother Nature
came in and gave you.
Said, "Well, we want some more trees down." So it's messier than I would like to see, but that's that's
these are maples.
So this one here is a maple, a soft maple. Yep. And then a lot of them were pin oaks, red oaks.
What will you do with these?
So I'll sell most of them to a sawmill. I've got my own sawmill that I will mill a few of the oaks into, boards for my barns or whatnot. But most of this stuff I'll just sell commercially to a local sawmill, and they'll make it into cabinets or.
You said soft maple. What species of maple is it? Do you know?
It'd be a red maple.
Red maple.
Yeah. This is I think it's a double 12-footer.
Do you heat with wood?
I do not. We do not. We have a natural gas on the farm from the wells that were dug on the farm, so it's free gas. So you heat with free gas instead of cutting your firewood.
I like it. Huh?
I have a lot of friends who heat with it. Sit.
Amazing.
Back. 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 Step. Back. 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 It's a slow process.
Having a snack while they're waiting for the next command.
They like
Oh, that's cool. Ratchet her right up, huh? That's cool.
Yep.
What's it mean when they start pawing out the ground like that?
It's impatience. She wants to go. She don't eat standing still because I'm holding her. So she's like, let's go, let's go, let's go. You know, because she wants to keep pulling.
Sorry, ladies.
Yeah, well, no, this is good for them to learn. To stand still when I want them to stand still.
What was the term you were talking about? The log size? What was the terminology you used?
Well, just the length. So it's two 12-foot logs.
Okay.
So it's a 25-foot log because you leave overcut. So if it's a 12-foot log, you actually cut it 12-foot 6, or 14-foot 6, or 10-foot 6, or if you do 8-footers, they want 8 inches, so 8'8". So you have to learn your doubles. You know, if you want two 8-footers, you cut it 17'4" instead of 16-foot. And then I'll pull it to the landing. They'll actually cut it in half at the landing, so it'll haul away easier.
Okay.
But, certain logs, certain places, you can pull out 2 or 3 at a time, or 4, depending on the length of skid, the condition of the horses, the size of the logs. There's lots of factors. It's deciding, whether you pull out 1, 2 trees, 1 tree. But yeah. Yep.
That was cool. They're not into the saw today, huh?
They were doing it fine this morning. But that's baby horses for you. Means they get to practice again.
I like it. Work in progress. I wouldn't want that saw running behind me either.
Yeah, the veteran horses actually like to hear the saw because it means their load's getting lighter.
Ah.
So a veteran horse, when you fire the saw, will stand as long as you want them.
You got a nickname?
Me?
Yeah.
I don't know. All my friends have all different nicknames.
What's the nicknames?
The Hawk.
To hawk.
Because I see everything because I'm taller.
Because you're tall. Ooh.
You know, that's one. You know, then you always get the, you know, the spider legs and whatnot. But most people call me D.
D.
Dehan.
D. D. I told you I spent years running the tree service.
Yep. Where's
your hearing protection?
It's over there. I left it. Something I forgot whenever we were chatting, to put it back on the cart.
There's a lot of opportunities to get injured.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It would work here. They were fine all morning. They know there's a camera here.
Oh, that's... Well, one, we're seeing real life. 2, we get to edit.
Do what I told you I should do with young horses anyway. Point them right at you. Huh. I just forgot you were baying. That's why you point them at you. Because they don't go anywhere.
It looks like a nice, well-built log tong.
I like it because it's a long handle. A lot of them are only 4 foot. This is 60 inches, and it just, when you do this all day.
Yeah, leverage matters.
It does. And with the horses, like there's lots of ways to log. You can, I'm pretty much a only horse person on my job, so I don't normally have a skid loader or a tractor on my landings. It's just the way I normally do it. Now there's lots of horse loggers that'll have a tractor or a skid loader, so they can stack their logs up on the landings, so they don't care how tight they make them. But when you do it with no equipment on site, every single log you're rolling as tight as you can get so that the log trucks can get them picked up. So
why are they getting antsy?
Because they want to work.
They've
been standing too long.
Okay.
This morning we put all these logs out in like an hour and a half, so they were all
they were running. That's
happy.
Right. Yeah, I could see it a
So
little sweaty.
Let's go find some more logs. Make them happy.
Hi. Hi. What are these two's names?
The one closest to you is Magnolia.
Magnolia.
And then Barberry is here behind me.
Magnolia and Barberry. How old are these two?
Oh, Maggie, I think she's 6, and Barberry is 5. We imported her as a yearling and Barberry as a weanling. Just because I found some down in West Virginia when I first got into it, and then I was trying to find a stud to breed to, and the closest stud I could find was in Kentucky. And the guy was having some health issues, and the only way he would sell me his stud would be as if I bought his other 4 mares. So that kind of kicked off the breeding program, because I'm like, well, I need the stud because I want to breed him and I can't find anyone to breed him for. So then I bought his entire herd, and that just kind of snowballed us into we had already been in, my wife was into breeding gypsy banners, so we already kind of had that background in us, but that bumped us into this breed. And then that was right when they started getting more popular, and we started a registry for them, and we started importing horses, and now we've imported, I don't know, 5 or 6 maybe. So
what's that process look like? How do you get a horse from Europe? I mean, just even bringing like a bag of fruit.
Yeah, no, it's a process. It's not cheap, and it's not for the faint of heart. We recommend going over there. We took a 15-day trip over there and met with breeders, saw their horses, just kind of got a feel for who they were. Because over there, I mean, you know, we think of history over here, but our history over here doesn't even start to touch the history of Europe.
Sure.
So the breeders over there, go back farther than, our country.
That's true.
So it was a really neat process to go over there and travel and get to actually meet the breeders, build a reputation with them. So we recommend going over there because there are horse traders over there, just like there are horse traders over here. They will sell you a bad horse, for more money because you don't know any better. So we recommend going over there. And if you can't swing a trip to find your own horses, talk to us, talk to somebody who has been over there, to try to get, the best information you can. And then it's once you get the horse, you got to buy the horse, then vet check it over there, blood test it.
Bunch of paperwork.
They fly over, so they're on airplanes. You got to line up a company to fly it over, and then when they hit over here, it's a 3-day quarantine to make sure they're not sick, and they do blood tests. And
may I ask, how much does it cost to fly a
horse
what does one of these weigh?
Well, you're doing it when they're little.
Okay.
So you can't, if you do it before they're 24 months old, it's about half the price.
Okay.
Which is still like $7 or $8 grand just for the plane ticket and the quarantine. So
that's a lot of logs. Yeah. That's a lot of logs, baby.
So to import a horse, you're looking at $12,000 to $14,000.
Wow.
By the time you purchase it, fly it, quarantine it, vet check it, transport it home, it's not a cheap investment. But they're hard to find over here. So it's kind of a,
if you want it, you want it. Do you ever have people say this is mean? Or like, I don't know. I mean, you hear people that, meat is murder and, things like that. Fur is murder. I mean, like taking an animal, hitching it up to a cart and making it pull things all day.
Yeah. I mean, this is what they've been bred to do since, hundreds of years ago. I think they actually like it. They'll come, it's not like you have to go chase them around the field to catch them every morning, They'll come to me and we'll harness them up and go and pull, and it's kind of like a collie, a work dog. Those dogs, they're happiest when they're herding sheep or when they're doing a task that you have created for them as their job. Horses, I feel like, at least the drafties are kind of the same way, is they prefer to be moving. And I think it's healthier for them too, because look at people, if you're sitting around not doing anything all day, you tend to not be as healthy. Whereas if you're out running, you're out being active, they want you to have an hour of activity a day. Horses are, they're animals too. They need to be physically fit. They need to be, the heaviest have problems with lung stuff. So if you keep them working, it pushes their lungs out. The way horses are designed, their movement actually pumps the blood back up their legs. So when they step down, they have a soft frog, and it actually pumps fluid from their hooves back up to their, through their heart and through the circulatory system. So if a horse is standing all day in a stall, they're not really getting much movement. And the heavies especially, they need that movement to be healthy. So
I never knew that.
So working is actually, in my opinion, much healthier for the horse. It's going to live a better life. It's going to, in my opinion, it's going to be a healthier horse. And, you're with them all day, so you can catch if something's going wrong with them. You can, you're scratching on them. If they're in the field, they just stand in the field. So they're getting loved on a lot more when they're worked on than whenever they're just standing in the field bored out of their minds.
That makes sense.
So, I mean, everybody's welcome to their opinions, but for me, I feel like they're happier and healthier when we work them.
Are these horses shod?
They're not.
No.
In the middle of winter, if it gets freezing and thawing and gets icy, I'll shoe them with cleats on them. But the European Brabant has a fantastic hoof.
What's that mean? What's a fantastic hoof?
So, in my opinion, a hard hoof.
Okay.
Because it doesn't wear as fast. It's not as likely to crack. The shape, they have it's a strong shape. You don't have to worry about them blowing parts off very often. A lot of American horses in the hitch world have been bred to have big, wide, flaring feet. So they pick their feet up, and it looks, movement-wise, looks good, but it's horrible for longevity. In my opinion, I don't want any haters.
They can hate. I mean, you're allowed your opinion.
But they have strong, large, well-built hooves that hold up very well, and I don't have to shoe them. I can work them all year long barefoot, and their hooves hold up, their legs hold up.
You seem like a barefoot kind of guy.
Yeah, I have barefoot shoes on.
You do, don't you?
They're barefoot.
The hippie logger.
Yeah. So we don't shoe them unless the weather conditions, require it. And then I will shoe them, and, it's no problem with that. But I have found that I don't need to shoe them, which helps because we have such a large herd that I will rotate horses every day or every other day just to keep everybody in shape and everybody fit. So I'll be working maybe one team a week, and then if I was to shoe everybody, it gets very expensive.
I see.
So if I'm running barefoot horses, I don't have to worry about, well, I'm only going to run these 6 horses all winter because they're shooters. And if they're kicking each other in the field, if you have big studs on them, you can get in all kinds of trouble.
Hurting each other,
fighting over feed bags, fighting over hay. Not that they kick very often, but they do fight once in a while. And
I would not want to get kicked by one of these.
No, it's not enjoyable. But these guys are super calm. You can see they're a fantastic breed. I feel like the European Brabants have probably the best disposition out of any breed.
They do seem very relaxed.
A lot of people are crossing them now with quarter horses, thoroughbreds, other drafts to kind of bring back that quiet, shorter, heavier bodied horse. So we're doing a lot of outcrosses with studs. A lot of people are importing studs just to outcross with. So they do a lot for the horse community in terms of bringing level-headedness, better hooves, and a shorter horse with bone back to some of these breeds that have kind of, in my opinion, been bred for not hooves and a little too movementy, a little too tall.
Stuff that doesn't translate to longevity.
Longevity or usability. So, I loved my 19.2 perch run. He was just, I couldn't even see over his back. Like, his back was just awesome. But riding him really hard, the average person couldn't harness him. My wife couldn't harness him. Whereas a lot of people like these guys, because you could be 60 years old and still harness, basically at your same height. So the shorter the draft, the easier it is for an aging person to work. If they're calm and quiet, you're more likely to want to spend time out with your horses. You're more likely to want to drive your horse or ride your horse. Or get
so
on
you
horse.
Saddle some of these guys and ride?
Almost all of them are broke to ride. Yep.
Wow.
Yep. She's actually my high point horse for this winter's trail challenge.
I don't know what that is.
So there's a place up here that has a mountain trail challenge once a month. So it's got bridges and logs and rocks and people hauling from West Virginia 3 hours away just to go to this thing once a month.
Are you moving quickly?
No, it's a walk. Some of it's trot, some of it's walk.
So you're really testing the ability, they're agility?
Being willing to do what you want them to do. They'll change up the obstacles to make it scary, or not scary.
For them.
For them. Basically it's just a fun thing to do with your horse to help you have a reason to spend time with your horse.
I would love to hear about that and come watch that. That sounds super interesting.
It's just fun because it gives you something to do in the winter when you're like, well, I'm not going to go out, it's cold. But I've got this trail challenge next month. I need to go practice with my horse. So it's kind of nice just to help motivate you to be with your horse more, which is why I like logging too, because you're like, well, it's cold out and I don't want to do anything. Well, I need to go work. So, you go out and you work. But the trail challenge is just a fun. So I ride her. She's learning how to be a trail challenge horse. Last year I won the whole thing on another horse we had, or 2 years ago, I guess.
Kind of bragging a little bit right now?
They're just a good breed.
Yeah.
And nobody else, not very many people take drafts. A lot of them are the quarter horses.
So you're the weirdo.
I'm the weirdo
that shows up
but they're
with the freaking.
And they'll do anything you point them at. So it's kind of smart.
Jesus on the draft horse.
Kind of smart.
Jesus on the draft horse.
Yeah.
I like it.
So I like it because I'm showing other people that you can do stuff with drafts. Drafts are not only a workhorse. They're a fantastic workhorse, but they're also a fantastic riding horse. They're quiet. They're, they can support you. You can do whatever on a draft horse. Maybe not barrels, but you could do barrels slow.
Do they have much longevity on a trail? Like if you, in the old days, if this was all you had and you had to.
I would say they have more. These guys, I'll go in the woods for 10 hours a day in the winter, pulling logs, which is way harder than riding on a trail because you're just talking about a 170, 200-pound person on their back. Whereas, that cart's 1,200 pounds and I'll pull out 4,000-pound logs for 8 hours. So
that's amazing.
It's a long time. So that's amazing. Yeah, they might not hold up at a trot for 2 hours, but if you conditioned it to it, you could do well. But who is trotting for 2 hours on a trail somewhere? Normally it's, trot for 10 minutes, walk around, play, trot, canter. And they'll canter. They're just bigger, so it's not as comfortable as a light horse probably. But no, we ride them a lot. We used to do a lot more riding. But no, I like to show people that they're not only for heavy work, they're also just as capable at doing riding, trails, and competitions. And I have a buddy who's using them in marathon cart competitions. So they're a versatile breed, and all drafties are, not just Brabants. I feel like more and more people. There was another person at the last show that brought a perch ring, so it's working.
We had some friends growing up that had some that were rescued from, I think, Disney World.
Sure.
They pulled carts there, and when they got old, instead of being put down, they would take them.
Yeah, no, for sure.
He's getting some work done over there, getting hooked up, so I thought I'd take a minute to share. This is really freaking cool. Out here in these woods, watching these horses pull massive amounts of weight. It's pretty incredible. And just in the little time I've been around it, it is friggin' dangerous. D, are you always alone when you're logging, or do you have help?
Depends on the year, depends on the job. I've had Amish people help me before, where I was the one with the saw, cut down all the trees, bucking everything up. And
you had them running the horses?
Run my horses for me. And then for a couple years, I had a buddy who was getting into the business, and he cut for me, and I got to run the horses. And then most recently, I've just been by myself.
Yeah.
So my wife doesn't love it.
She doesn't like you being out there by yourself?
Yeah, I mean, it's not safe. You should always have somebody with you. From dropping trees to getting run over to, there's a million ways that you've seen some of that, you can get yourself in a pinch really quick.
Mm-hmm. Literally pinched between something. Yep. With the trees, the horses.
So it's safer for sure to have a second person, but sometimes you can't find someone that wants to work this type of work because it's hard. The end of a 10-hour day, you're tired. And it's really cold, and a lot of times they either don't want to run the horses, or cutting is dangerous too. And I'm very picky about how I drop my trees, because of my clientele tends to be people who really value what stays behind more than what is being pulled out. So you're not just dropping trees where you feel like it. You're really paying attention to what will be damaged when you drop it, what'll be damaged when you drag the tree out. So you can't just go in there with a chainsaw and cut down the trees. Now I can train people to do that, and you can, it's one thing, but it's, every dollar you pay someone else is a dollar you don't get to keep in your pocket. And horse logging is slow. So in timber industry is pretty much volume is how you make money. So horses aren't great at making volume. So it's not that you can't make money at it. I make a good living. But it's not always easy to find someone that you can pay to work with you. So some jobs in some years when the timber prices are low, you work by yourself. And sometimes when the timber prices are up and you've got a lot of jobs lined up, you can find someone to come work for you. So it's nice because it can, I don't know, you don't have to do it one way or the other. You can do it here and there, some, and so. But yeah, normally this year and last year I've been by myself.
Okay.
So and I've got some people, last year I had a girl come with me for
I was watching. I'm sorry, I should have said something. I didn't see the harness get wrapped up there. I was just watching them
last year I
playing.
had a girl come and stay with me for 3 or 4 weeks, just to horse log with me.
Was she a horse person?
She's a horse person. She was starting her own horse logging business up in Canada.
Oh, wow.
So she just wanted to spend as much time with horses and horse loggers and stuff to learn another way to do it, spend more time with the horses, which I actually did. Like I said, back when I first started, you couldn't find anybody. I had a guy out east that I called, Jim Axtell, whenever I had any questions about how do you do pricing, how do you
all the work
anything
stuff.
like I knew nothing. I got into it. I mean, I knew how to log because my dad, I did it when I was little, and I do tree service work, so I understood the cutting side of it. But the horse side of it was, the first time I put a harness on a horse, I looked like a complete idiot.
It's kind of true about how we do everything that's new for us, right?
But I'm a very hands-on kind of person. That's how I learn. I'm not very good at reading a book and knowing how to do something.
You go sort it
I'm
out.
a very trial by error kind of person. And just how I kind of did. But I had some people that I called. That's my wife. I had some people that I called when I had a question about, hey, this is what I'm trying to get into. What do I do? What do I do? And then I met a guy, Rich Dumond, who's a horse logger out there as well.
Where's he?
Rich.
Yeah.
He's amazing. He has horseloggersupply.com.
Is that where you would get like these harnesses?
No, these harnesses I got made by a local Amishman, but he has taken it upon himself to refabricate basically and get remade log grabs, which I'll show you out back behind me.
So is this something in the past was available?
This was a very common back in the very common back when logging was done with horses, pretty much, solely. So you can get these log grabs. He's reformed them and has them cast, and they're just another option, another variation. I can show you how to use them on another tree in there. But basically you pound them into the side of the log and then you hook onto here and pull it out instead of wrapping a chain around it.
Okay. So if the log is down in the dirt or the mud.
They shine in low grade and softwoods when you're dealing with, higher value hardwoods that when you pound stuff in,
you're ruining.
You can splinter them. Like if it's really, really cold out and you pound, it's like a wedge. So you can actually crack your log, or you're putting holes in it so you need more cut. So on high value lumber, I don't use those very often. Now I can if the situation goes for it, but it really shines in lower grade timber where you're just kind of grabbing it and pulling it out real quick, or you're doing a bunch of different little or smaller diameters at once. So he basically, sells those and remanufactures those. And then you need a skip hammer.
What's this called?
It's a skip hammer. So you pound it into the log again. It's easier if I show you, and then you use the point to pound it back out. So he recasts these and sells these. So he's kind of taken it upon himself to,
What a niche.
because he needed them. He's like, well, I need these. So what am I going to do? And then he just said, well, I'm going to, recast and get them remade so that, everybody else needs them too. So instead of only finding them at old estate auctions, now you can just go and buy them from his site. So I actually spent 3 days out with him.
Where's he at?
He's out kind of by Scranton.
Okay, so here in PA.
Yeah, like three and a half hours from us probably. So he was very welcoming. I called him up. I didn't know him at this point. And I just said, hey, I'm learning, trying to be a horse logger. I've been doing it for a year or two now. Can I come hang out? He said, sure, come on down. So,
That's cool.
So I've been finding that more and more over the last 5 years, that the horse logging community is very friendly, very welcoming.
You were welcoming to me. I called you out of the blue, and you're like, yeah, man, let's come film me in the woods.
We're I think, a down-to-earth group of people, because you're not going to do this if you're not kind of, down-to-earth. But that being said, there's a lot of us out here now that are doing it, and it's a lot easier to find horse loggers to talk to learn from, to go and spend a couple of days with, go spend 2 months with, they're much more willing to let you come and do stuff with them and learn from them.
It seems like there's a lot of things that we used to do that we're doing again. Like, I see you guys have a huge garden your wife was working in. Like, it's the town I come from has what's known as the best farm market in Illinois. Yep. And so people from Chicago, they come and they're like, this is so neat. And it's like, well, this is what people used to do. They grew crap.
Every single family used to have in their backyard.
And they couldn't eat it all, so they went and sold it at the town square. Yeah. But now it's like neat again.
Yeah, it is. So a lot of it is, people are trying to get back to their roots. I think it's part of it. And a lot of with the horse logging is becoming so much more popular because people are caring more about what is left instead of just a tangled mess. They want a healthy woods, or they want to have trails, and they want a healthy forest, but they still want to produce timber out of it and sell and make some money out of it. And before it wasn't an issue, but nowadays there's more people wanting that, so there's more horse loggers being able to start their businesses, because there's more people. It went very mechanized for a long time, and it was just the mechanized world. And now people are like, well, okay, I've got 15 acres. I just want to select cut through. I don't want a heavy harvest. And the guy doesn't want to haul in an oversized load and pay, $500 trucking and pay permits and just to pull out 2 loads of logs.
That's true. I've never even thought about that.
I was like, I don't care. I'm hauling my horses in every day anyway. I'll come and I'll cut your 1 acres, your 5 acres, your 20 acres, your whatever, but I'll only pull out, 1 load or 5 loads or 10 loads. Whereas if it's not 10 loads, a lot of commercial mechanized loggers, it's not really worth their time to set up, show up, cut everything, make a landing, and then disappear, because there's the volume isn't there for them.
Yeah, all the cost of transport and all that stuff.
But for me, I can afford to just go in and pull out 1 load and come back. So with the horses, I like to say low volume, high frequency. I would love to go back to your woods every 5 years. And that works because I'm pulling out such a small amount of the percentage of trees in your woods that every 5 years I can come back and re-select different trees for different purposes, to keep growing the healthiest, best trees and still make money out of your woods.
That's cool.
So I like to say, if you were to let me do this for 50 years, you would make more money at the end of the 50 years than if you let someone come and heavy harvest, today. But that's hard for people to understand, because, well, this guy offered me, $40,000 for my timber, and you're only offering me 6.
I'm gonna be back in 5 years and give you another 6.
I'll give you another 4, and then next year, 5 years from then, I might give you 15, because the timber will be better and we'll be pulling out different, So, but after 50 years, you would have made more money in the long run, and you would actually have a woods that is worth just as much, if not more, than it would have been when you harvested it heavily the first time. Because you want to, ideally, again, this is my way of thinking, and there's a lot of people that agree with it, is you can select the trees that you want to get bigger and let them get to the point where they're actually worth good money, and start your regen by pulling out a few trees. You're letting light in, which is then letting saplings start to grow. So you're having a multi-age woods, which is actually very healthy for wildlife because different species live at different canopy heights. And then by the time you pull out, say, 20 years from then, you're pulling out the big tree right beside that canopy. It is worth the most because it's the largest, but you've also got a 20-year-old sapling underneath that canopy that is now, 30, 40 feet tall to fill the void of the big tree you just took out.
Unlike just coming and leveling it.
If you do a diameter grade where you're taking everything 14, 15, 16, even 18 inches in diameter, you're basically creating a 2-story woods. You've got your everything smaller than 15 inches, and then your brush growing up. Whereas if you're pulling out, 1 tree, 2 trees, 3 trees an acre, you really haven't changed the woods visually a whole lot, but you've actually let light in, which is going to let saplings start in that little canopy where you took it out of. And then when you do that every 5-10 years, all of a sudden you've kind of picked which trees you want to let the nice straight trees grow, pull out the bad trees first. And there's a chart someone did once where it shows board feet per diameter. So if you're pulling out a 15-inch tree, you're making like, I don't know, $30 on that tree, But if you let that tree get to 25 inches, you could get a veneer log, and then you could be making $600-800 off that tree. So by letting people cut your 15-inch trees, your 16-inch trees, you're only making, $30-40 off that tree, which is laughable, really. Whereas if you were just to cut some of the junkier trees, let those nice 16-inch trees turn into 25-inch trees,
it's a long haul game.
And that's the problem. It's people like to think tomorrow and not 10 years from now. But I think that's why you're seeing more of the people wanting to garden, more than people want to homestead, is they're looking more long term. They care more about what's there for their kids. They say, well, my kids are going to get this, so I want this woods to be pretty. And again, just because you're doing a select cut, I feel like you can actually improve timber. Maybe not 100 years ago, but nowadays with the invasive species, we have multiflora rows, we have different trees, we have ash killing all the ash trees and the woolly delegate killing hemlocks. So in my opinion, in this woods that we have right now, an unmanaged woods is actually less healthy than properly harvested managed woods, because you're kind of picking diversity in your woods so that you're not a single culture of only oak trees or only this type of tree. So when an ash borer comes in and kills all your ash trees, all of a sudden you're not left with a multiflora rose wasteland. And again, each place has different problems. We have multiflora rose. It's one of the worst scratchy, prickly, thick shrub thing that grows, and it chokes out everything. So if you do a heavy harvest, lets light into the ground, that stuff comes up in spades, and all of a sudden you've got this
takes
over.
The
deer can't even walk through. And if you don't do it right, you could even get saplings not growing through it. Whereas if you're taking a little tree here and there, you've got one pocket of sunlight and stuff starts to grow. And if rose bushes takes over, it only takes over in that one little spot, and you're like, well, that was a loss. Whereas the other trees are going to grow back in, fill in the canopy, kill off the rose bush in the shade, and then you start all over again. So there's a million ways that I feel like doing a select cut with low volume but high frequency is far more beneficial to a healthy woods.
So much to think about that I don't think people just, as we drive past stands of timber like this, you don't even think about.
You don't think about that. And people think foresters have their best mind, which again, I'm not bashing foresters. They have their purposes and their reasons. And there was a time when the timber industry was very weaselly per se, and they would try to
kind of like the mining industry or the oil industry.
Commercial industries even they all had these peaks where they were just trying to steal timber and make way more money and destroy land because they didn't care. Whereas nowadays, most sawmills I know, they actually care about the land and the landowners. And not saying you couldn't be taken, but foresters in a period of time were the reasons woods were saved. Whereas nowadays, I feel like you can find people like me, you can find other loggers that are very much minded in being stewards the land, and you don't need the forester to be the middleman for them. And I find it hard because I'll lose jobs because of that. They hire a forester, the forester does a mark.
So the forester's more like the...
Foresters are kind of like the police. They're the ones selecting which trees to come out, which is good and bad. So they make a commission, so it's a percentage off of how much they can sell your woods for.
So like the landowner hires a forester?
They hire a forester because they say, we want our woods, we want to make the most money off our land, or we want to have it done without being destroyed, and we don't want them to leave the woods destroyed. So the forester makes a plan saying, this is where your landing's at, these are the trees you take, which is great. But the problem is they're marking the timber for the industry right now that is set up. And if they mark it so nobody wants to buy that woods, then they're not going to sell the timber. So they might say, how are we supposed to mark this woods? Those trees, nobody would buy this woods or pay any money for it because it's only the junkier trees. I'm like, well, that's true, except I would still do it on a percentage basis or whatever I happen to do this time. And then the next time you're going to have a better harvest and a better harvest and a better harvest. So they're going to make sure that your woods isn't destroyed. They're going to make sure that the loggers do what they're supposed to do and take the trees they're supposed to, which is good. But they also have to sell the timber for the most money, which will dictate how they mark the woods. So the way I would mark a woods and a forester would mark a woods would probably be completely different. Because I know how I'm going to make my money off of the trees, and they're trying to get conventional mechanized sawmill people to buy them. So again, I think there's a purpose for them, a reason for them, but I don't think they're the only way in this age, now that we have a lot more people that are logging that are stewards themselves and understand a healthy forest. Sometimes you can lose out on the best logger in your area because you're tied into a forester that is putting a large bid out that I can't compete with a mechanized crew on. Because I'll get a good day, I'll get a load and a half out. A mechanized crew can get 2 to 3 to 5 loads a day out. So I can't compete with them because they're paying their guys per load or per day. So it's hard for me to compete, which is fine. That's why I have the niche that I have. And the way that I do it, it works well. And I have jobs, and foresters have jobs, and the other loggers have jobs. But I guess being an informed landowner is the most important nowadays. And it's easy to become an informed landowner. In our area, there's a woodland owner association. You can just be a member of if you own land, and they have meetings every quarter or something, and they walk the forest with state foresters, with loggers, with
help educate
landowners on this is what you need to know about your timber industry, about your woods, about your property, about logging, about all sorts of stuff, so that you as a landowner can be informed and not be taken by a forester, not be taken by a horse logger, not be taken by a normal logger. Understand the value of different trees, the problems with your woods where it might not be a high value woods even though you think it is. So yeah, basically informing yourself as a landowner is more important than just blindly following a forester, a horse logger, or a conventional logger.
Buyer beware.
Yeah, buyer beware, but also be aware that, just because you hire a forester might not necessarily be the best fit for what you want out of your woods, I guess. Because you can find someone maybe that isn't doing it purely for a cost, immediate timber sale guidelines, I guess. I'll look at the next harvest in 5 years or 10 years, and this harvest might be horrible. I might hardly make any money on it, but they're going to hire me in 5 years or 10 years to do the better harvest. So if you looked at it in money-wise, they're not going to find anybody to do it. So yeah, that just being said, don't be afraid not to use a forester if you feel like you can trust the person on the other side.
I like it. That's all. I think that's all great information.
they're good and they have their purposes.
The fun thing is, like a discussion like this, for a lot of people that don't live in rural regions, it's an interesting discussion. For people that do, like you said, you don't want haters.
Yeah,
I mean, it's pretty easy to be opinionated about stuff like this, and we have destroyed. I go to the Pacific Northwest. I've got a friend that's a retired logger from out there, and they're way different than they used to be.
Sure.
But I mean, they clear cutted millions of trees, millions.
Sure.
I was just watching a documentary last night on the hemlocks, and I didn't I'm sorry, not hemlocks, chestnuts. You said hemlocks, got it in my head. On the American chestnut.
Sure.
I never realized the professor doing this discussion was showing trees and like old picture, 100-year-old picture, and he's like, what type of tree is this? And everybody said a redwood, a sequoia, and they were literally like
the
10
American
foot.
chestnut was the largest board-foot species on the East Coast, I think.
I probably
Back in
believe
the
it
day,
looking
I
at
think
what.
It was there was more board-foot of American chestnut in the East Coast woods, I think, at one time.
And we decimated it with logging, but then disease did.
Disease completely wiped it out practically, so that was a downfall with that.
But the cool point of that discussion was it's making a comeback, according to this professor.
There are people working on it, trying to rebreed different strains, and it's coming. It's just a slow process.
Yeah.
But it's coming.
Let me see those working man hands of yours. Those are some beat up mitts. Let's see those. Dang.
They're well used, well broken. I'm not, missing a fingernail on that one.
What'd you do? Smash it?
Yeah, smash it. But
Working
it takes
man.
them a while in the morning to want to turn. The 500, in my opinion, is in a league of its own. It's the only fuel injected saw, which is why we're saying this. It's not just like this different. It's the 500i is the only fuel injected
Go ahead.
saw.
Let's do a little steel sales pitch here.
Steel 500i. Logger's choice. But it's the power to weight, the throttle response, I think, is probably what you notice the most. When you're knocking down a large tree, it doesn't bog down, it cuts right through it, and then all of a sudden you jump up and you start limbing it, and as soon as you touch the throttle, it's instant power. You don't have to wait for a power band, you don't have to lug it into it. It zips the branches off and you just throw it around all day, and at the end of the day you're not as tired because it is lighter, and you're not running it as long because it's cutting quicker.
You ever been hurt?
I've been hurt. I've never been hurt by a saw.
Good. Me neither.
Knock on wood. Never been hurt by a saw, but I have had my close calls in the woods.
I mean, you're not wearing logging boots. You're wearing these I'm anchored to the earth shoes, which is cool.
Yeah. Not wearing chaps.
Nope, no chaps.
I wear a hard hat when I'm cutting.
Okay.
So I do have a hard hat. I don't wear them when I'm just walking around the woods, but if I'm dropping trees or cutting, I will have a hard hat on. Some of it comes from being a farmer, probably. You accept some risk. I don't know if you know Mike Rowe. Mike Rowe is one of my favorite people.
I don't know him, but of course I know who he is.
Yeah.
Yep.
So one of his slogans is "Safety Third." I like that slogan because I find it very applicable to my life. Safety is not first in my life. If safety was first, I wouldn't train horses. I wouldn't log, I wouldn't. I would walk around in a bubble suit and never go anywhere. So safety is not first priority in my life. Living my life is, first priority. Loving people around me, obeying God first, and then having a career, being able to live is second, and then third would be, I have to be able to survive long enough to do 1 and 2. So safety third, he coined it. I like it because I feel like that's true. You're weighing risks, everything you do, and my acceptance for what is safe and what is not safe isn't dictated by OSHA's guidelines because they're not me. They haven't done what I've done. They don't, I feel like people should be allowed to choose what they want to do. People shouldn't tell
So you're kind of a freedom-minded dude.
Yeah, You know, I mean, I think there was a time whenever businesses forced people to do things that were super unsafe and people were getting killed on jobs and they were just replacing them and didn't care. So I think there was a time where all the safety regulations was important. But as with most things, it starts with something really good and then it just kind of snowballs into this really big, all-encompassing, everybody has to be the most possible safe that they can be without thinking about the consequences to, you know, productivity, to, you know, the happiness of the person doing it.
I think there's a fine line there. Like in our firearms training, we talk about it a lot. Like if I agree, I wouldn't be out on a range shooting guns around hundreds of people a year if I didn't enjoy it, because it in itself has some inherent risks. But then we don't do things like look down the barrel of a loaded gun, because that's just stupid and there's no reason for it. But then I take it like another step, like I'm going to wash my hands before I eat because I don't want to create lead poisoning in my body over time. So there's like, you know, guys that are like, or like hearing protection. In carpentry, guys always would make fun of you. Yeah. And now I have tinnitus that rings. I can hear it right now over the sound of my own voice. And the chainsaw and like weed whackers were the worst. But like same thing, like, that's stupid.
Yeah, well, in carpentry, I used to do construction for 15, 16 years too. And you're like, oh, it's just a skill saw. It's just an impact gun. I'm not putting the headsets on for that.
Right, shop backs, all that stuff add up.
When you're logging, like I'm running my noisy chainsaw and putting my ears, or you're shooting guns, you're putting your headset on. But in the carpentry world, you get made fun of. So.
But it's the same thing. Like I don't want to do that because it's taking away my enjoyment. But then later, you don't enjoy listening to music.
Well, I think you should be informed. I think people should be given good information, and you know, I think people should be able to make their own decisions on it. Which is why, you know, I don't wear chaps, not because it's not safe, but I feel Mike Rowe said it again. I just love watching his stuff. He was
kind of like, a Mike Rowe guy.
I am a Mike Rowe guy. I love Mike Rowe. He was saying, now again, I'm probably wrong. I'm just paraphrasing, but he was the first year of Dirty Jobs or something. Nobody really got hurt, and then they had all these people hired on as safety protector people, and they started getting injuries on their jobs, and they're like, well, why is this? We have all these safety people. And they kind of figured it out. It was because they had all these safety people were trusting the safety people and the equipment to keep them safe.
Instead of trusting what they knew.
Thinking of themselves and how they should keep themselves safe. So I know chainsaws are dangerous, and I know if it touches me, I'm in trouble. And it's you know, again, yes, you can slip and accidents happen. You know, I get it. Understand it, and I'm willing to take that risk, I guess. But not having them on all the time keeps me very aware that I need to make sure I know what's happening and keep a good grip. And so a little bit of that is, you know, if you're so protected, you're not thinking of your own safety, you're maybe more likely to get hurt than if you don't have as much safety stuff on but are very aware of the dangers. That's all.
That makes good sense. You gonna skid some more logs out of the forest? Big stuff. Pretty crazy.
Yeah, that just shows what the storm was like, that it uprooted that tree.
We saw one on the way over. Same species. That's a red maple too?
That one's a pin oak. Right.
That's a pin oak?
Yeah. This was a maple here. That one's a pin oak.
So why no taproot?
So hickories have a heavy taproot, which is why you'll rarely ever see a hickory blown over.
So that species that's down right now is a pin oak.
Yep. Yeah, they don't really have any taproot. They've got wide roots, but it's really swampy here, kind of wet. And it was just an incredible storm.
Yeah, that's a monster tree too. There's a lot of fuel right there.
But if you look up, it completely opened up. Like there's no canopy anymore.
That cherry came down too right here. Same thing, uprooted.
Yeah, that's probably what pushed it over. Huh?
So this one that you've got right now, this is a red maple?
Yeah, red maple, yep. Yep.
So this one was not a candidate to use your...
No, this is we can use it on the, we'll use the log grabs on the last log.
Log
So
grabs.
the first log, the butt log, is the most valuable in any tree.
Okay. The butt log is the most valuable in any tree.
Yeah. For lots of reasons. So, again, I could do that. We could be here for a week. So, sawmills will grade timber on sides. So there's 4 sides to a log. And then they'll go with sweep, which would be straightness of the log versus, you know, if it's hooked or bent. And they have the, where your heartwood is in the middle. But basically, in general, your 4 sides. So for every side that has a blemish, you get docked a grade, basically. So your butt log of most trees, there's, you know, like if you look at the red oak over there,
which is pretty beautiful,
4 or
except for
5
that.
logs, yeah, with nothing in it, which
Yeah.
is very uncommon.
That's beautiful.
But your average tree, this one here, the first log, is going to have no branches in it. It's going to be the straightest, largest diameter. So you're going to have 4 clean sides, no sweep, largest diameter, most bored feet, be worth the most money.
So this log right here is about 12 feet long?
I think it's a 10 footer.
Okay, so what is that log gonna sell for, or like what's its value right now in December of 2023?
That's a good question.
I mean, is it like $10, $10 million?
No, it's probably worth like $130 maybe.
Okay.
Depends. It's got a little bit of rot in the bottom of it and the heart, so that's going to knock the grade a little bit. It's not perfectly uniform. It's got a little bit of a hook in it, so it's just not a high. It'll probably be graded my guess is it'll be graded a 2. So there's like prime, well, veneer. Veneer would be your highest grade you could get, or veneer plus. Veneer, then there's prime plus prime, which are basically veneer but just a little lower. Veneer, prime plus prime, then 1, 2, 3, 4 blocking. Most trees don't have veneer. Very few trees have veneer.
Would that oak there?
It would, except red oak right now is in the tanks, so they're not going to pay you veneer for it because just because it's a veneer log doesn't mean you're going to get veneer out.
Nobody's using red oak for their homes anymore.
That in the veneer quality, then you're not going to get veneer for it.
It's not in vogue.
And right now, red oak is not a strong wood, so you could be selling veneer logs for grade 2 prices because they can't sell the veneer log, so they're not going to pay you for the veneer log.
That makes sense.
Just because you can get a veneer log doesn't mean a sawmill is going to pay you for the veneer log, because if they can't sell it as a veneer log, it's just a normal grade 1, grade 2. So this would probably be a grade 2.
It's a couple weeks of firewood too.
Yeah, right. Yep. Well, and you can cut all the tops up for firewood. So, but yeah, this is probably a grade 2 log. If I was to, if I was to try to grade it myself, I would grade it a grade 2. And the next 2 are grade 2s as well, and then a grade 3 are blocking.
So will you, this big pin oak, will you get this guy all cut up and drug out of here?
I'm not sure. I'll probably cut it.
I mean, that's freaking almost 4 foot.
Yeah, it's probably at least 4 foot. Yeah, it is.
Would you go stand by it? Just because you're 6'7", I don't know if people understand just how big this freaking tree is. You're 6'7", and it's crazy.
Yeah, it's probably about 40 inches. So it's huge. Yeah.
So how would you move that?
That's a good question. 5 horses.
Really?
Maybe. Hook, basically 2 carts, get both carts together.
And then you chop like a 10 or 12 foot section off of that bad boy?
Probably, basically you can see, so there's a knot right here. So I would probably pick right before the knot, and it's probably an 8 or 10 footer.
And then this would become like table slabs or something
Yeah,
cool.
I would mill this myself into table slabs. Yeah, which is probably what would actually happen to it. I've got my own portable mill that I could set up on top of it. So I'll probably cut it into a 10-foot or an 8-foot.
Would you walk back by the stump there just so people can understand? Like, I mean, that's I can't even get it all in the shot with that pretty big cherry just dangling, holding on up there. It's like something out of like a I don't know, apocalypse film. It's crazy.
Yeah. So, yeah,
There's a bad storm.
yeah. Well, and other people, again, I could do this all day. People are going to think this tree's worth the most money in my woods.
Because it's the biggest?
Because it's huge.
I see.
That red oak there would be worth more money than this one.
Because of how perfectly straight she is.
Because of the size. A sawmill can't do anything with this.
Ah.
The sawmill's going to take this, they're going to cut it down the middle, black powder it maybe, blow it in half.
They
can't mill this.
They use explosives?
They'll use black powder, or sometimes they'll use a large chainsaw and slice it.
I did not know that even was a thing.
There's lots of different ways sawmill, even today we'll do it. And if you mill this, having your own sawmill changes your entire opinion on, oh, this log should be worth so much money, it's so pretty.
Until you have to mess with it.
Yeah, until you start cutting boards out of it, and you're like, what's all this shape? Cracks in it, and it, it has heart rod in it. You're like,
But you could do some cool furniture
you can make
pieces.
some really cool furniture with, but commercial people want uniformity.
Mm-hmm.
And chances are, if you cut this log up, there's going to be lots of mineral in it because it's in a swampy area and it's an oak. So there's going to be lots of mineral, so they're not going to like it. There's probably shake in it. It's probably got, a lot of like spider cracks in it because it's so big. And in really cold winters, it'll actually crack. This is a frost crack running down here. So that crack's actually going to run the whole way to the middle because the water in the middle froze and popped it.
Popped it apart.
So it's still solid, and you can cut that into a board and it'll still be solid, but it'll be weaker a little bit. So, whereas this one has all these little like tweaky blemishes and they can't mill it. No veneer plant is going to be able to spin this on the veneer, blade.
Just too big.
It's like a big lathe. They can't run this, So really, once you get over a certain diameter, veneer plants won't touch it. So you've lost your highest grade log art right off the bat. And then there's going to be more blemishes on it. So they're going to knock your grade down and down and down. Whereas even though that log over there, is probably 28 inches out the butt, you cut a 12-footer out of that or a 10-footer out of that, it could be worth more than, the 42-inch log. So people think the bigger the tree, the more money they're going to get. We're going to let our trees grow until they're this size and then harvest them all. You can, but if you would select cut every once in a while when they were that size, you're actually going to produce more timber in your woods because this tree's way old. Whereas if you cut it when it was that size, you could already have another one that size before you get, So just because it's big doesn't make it more money.
That makes sense.
There's a fine line between being the right size and making more money and being too small.
I think there's a dick joke in here, D.
Ideally, when you're locking through woods, it's not diameter grade. You're not saying, well, we're taking everything 18 inches because that's how you dictate what trees come out. You should be picking on a single tree basis. It should be this tree's coming out because there's some really good white oaks beside it that are, 18 inches, and I want them to grow faster and I want the next generation to be white oak. So this tree should come out. It might be 28 inches, it might be 16 inches, it might be 48 inches. And then all of a sudden you walk 20 feet and that tree is picked for an entirely different reason. So going by, even if you went with a 24-inch diameter harvest, like that's, in my opinion, still a really bad harvest because you're taking out all the mega seed trees, all the best trees. And if you did that, say you did only 28-inch or 22-inch diameter and bigger, you do that 3 times over 40 years, and all of a sudden, like that tree behind you, that's what your entire woods is going to look like, because you've never harvested the bad trees. You've never, not the big pretty one, the ugly little one.
The one that shouldn't be standing.
Right, the multi-stem trees. Like I did, and here I did a lot of multi-stem harvest 2 years ago. So there were less multi-stem trees, maple trees, in this woods because they take up more canopy. They don't go as straight. They're, I don't like multi-stem maples, but they're one of the first, like this used to be a pasture. a long time ago. So cherry trees, maple trees, and pin oaks are your first fastest growing species. So now we've got beech trees, hickory trees, some white oak, and some red oak growing up in this. But originally this was a pasture that is multi-stem maples and cherries. So I was knocking
It was
down
probably
all them.
forest before it was a pasture.
Yeah, but in the 1900s, basically all of the East Coast was leveled.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you look at pictures in the courthouse of, this area from 1912 or something, it's like pasture, fields and pasture. They leveled everything. So, I mean, clearly not every tree was cut down, but almost everything you see woods here is under 100-year-old woods. So it's, most of this stuff is going to be you're seeing a second generation woods at best around here, whereas it might not be the young woods anymore. It might be a 200-year-old wood, but it's still not an old growth like we used to see with the chestnuts that look like redwoods. Because red oaks and pin oaks get 5 feet in diameter if given the time, but nowadays everybody cuts them way before that. But back then every tree was huge. So the whole reason I got into it was because I wanted to find a way to spend as much time with the horses as I could, and the best way to do that is find a way to make money with them.
So you did that.
So I found a way to spend time with my horses, turn it into a business, and make money with it. And it's going to look different for every person. When I got started, I did construction. So I got into horse logging, but I would do, I didn't have jobs. I found a random job and I took a month off work and started horse logging. And then, 3 months later, I found another job. And then it kind of morphed into this really flexible job. And now I do it all winter long. And then I do tree service work in the summer. And then it kind of works for our business.
So in the summertime, you're actually like going to people's residences and cutting down.
High money, high stress, high, equipment, fancy everything. $1 million on the job site when we show up. And then I show up in the winter and show up with my horses and pull logs out. So I get both worlds, I guess. But
Okay.
it works well because we're a breeding farm as well. So we breed the European Brabants. We have all of our mares are bred. So we work them when they're bred, but we give them the last 2 months or a month off before they foal. And then I give them until they wean normally, which is 4 months off. So they get half the year off, at least. So if I was to log all year, I'd either have to stagger our foaling drastically, which you can do. People farm with them that way, and you could set your business up that way. But with us, we like to condense it so that we're only dealing with rebreeding, foaling in a short period of 2-3 months, just for our sanity's sake. And then we can also wean it at the same process, and everything kind of fits in order. So having the logging happen in the winter, and then spring's foaling and rebreeding, summer's tree service work, and bump back into logging. For me, it lets me do everything because that's a lot of work. You get tired at the end of the day. You get tired at the end of the winter. I can make more money doing tree service work. It's just the way it works. I might cut down one tree, but I can make more money than a week in the woods with the horses.
Sure.
So it kind of lets us. The nice part about horses, there's not a lot of money in them. If I went out and bought a, $200,000 skidder, I would have to work every single week logging to pay for my skidder payments.
Make that payment.
To cover just doing what I wanted to do. But with the horses, we already had the horses. Yes, I bought more equipment and saws, but your overall investment is super small. So it lets you have the flexibility, it lets me have the flexibility to horse log on my terms when I want to. And it lets it fit my lifestyle. So
I like it.
So I like it because you can do it seasonally.
That's how I live, bro.
So
that's why I'm out in the woods watching you horse log.
No question.
Yeah.
So you talked about, you do the horses in the winter time. How does the snow affect, or perhaps not affect, what you do in the winter time?
So another part of why I'd like to do it in the winter, again, in my opinion, where we're at, it's far better to log in the winter. So when you're dropping trees, to get them, again, if you're doing a low volume, so you're not taking every single tree in the woods, to get a tree full of leaves to fall is much harder because there's way more resistance. It just gets caught, it doesn't pick up the speed. And once you drop that tree on the ground, all those leaves die, fall off all at once, and can actually smother, your saplings, some of your undergrowth. Again, it's not the end of the world, but you can. So preferably the leaves are already scattered across the ground. There's less ticks. I had Lyme's disease once. It kicked my butt. I don't want it again. So the ticks are much less in the winter. The underbrush is all dead. You can see the whole way through the woods, so you can see what trees you're supposed to cut. You can see your little goat paths to get out of the woods better without doing damage. There's less jaggers that catch you. Like, it's just, winter is a better time to be in the woods logging, technically, in my opinion. Ideally, the ground freezes, which makes your impact even smaller with horses, because then if it's frozen, you could come in, do the whole job, and go away.
Not tearing
it's going to look like
everywhere.
you weren't even in there. Now you go in and you can still make ruts with horses. I mean, I'm not saying horses make no damage. There's been jobs where I have had, foot deep ruts on my main skid trails. Now they're not 4 foot deep ruts or 2 foot deep ruts, but they're still ruts and screwed up ground, and it heals quicker and faster. It's not compacted like a big skidder would do, but if it's wet out, you're still going to make a mess. So frozen ground is better. Snow, I like snow. I love snow. It's beautiful in the woods. There's nothing more fun than being out in the woods whenever it snows 4 inches overnight and it snows 2 or 3 more inches while you're there in the day. Quiet. The whole woods is perfectly quiet. Snow is everywhere. It's my happiest spot, I suppose, on a fresh snowy day. There's no mud. I hate mud. Last year I did a job it was so muddy. The harnesses are still covered with it.
I see it.
Pictures of them where they would go home at the end of the day, and I mean, it looked like they had laid down in a mud puddle and stood up because they were splashing so much mud that it just covered but you had to do the job, and it turned out to be a really good job, and it smoothed out and cleaned up really nice. I did some videos where I dragged a log sideways behind me when I left,
just to kind of smooth it out.
Flattened out the entire thing like you had graded it, with a skid loader or something, because it just followed them out.
That's cool.
So, there are ways to negate some of that. But I like winter. In snow, you can pull twice as much weight when the ground is frozen.
Friction.
So there's been jobs where I've been on them in the winter, and I can easily hook twice as much behind the horses, because as soon as they break it, they just start walking, and they're not, scratching and fighting. They're just sliding it right out, and that's when you would shoe the horses and put the cleats on them.
Give them
because it's too slippery for them to be barefoot.
That's cool.
But yeah, so winter is preferable. Cold weather is preferable. Snow preferable. Then kind of muddy. Like right now, it's a little warm, a little wet. But this is, just a very small amount of wood, so nothing is tracked over and over and over again. So you really only, with horses, you only get ruts and muddy sections, as if you're running one trail for 10 acres and you're trying to really get some timber out. This woods is just a little blowover job. So we're really hardly using the same trail for more than 2 or 3 trees. So you're still not even going to know we were here by spring.
That's cool.
Even though it's muddy and wet out. Yep. And the horses prefer it cold too.
Yeah, I saw them getting a little sweated up.
Yeah, they won't sweat. They don't drink as much when it's cold out. They don't overheat when you're working them hard.
What words are you using?
So I use ho or whoa to stop. Easy is my form of like, hey, listen to me, slow down, whether it be from a trot to a walk or if they're scared. Easy brings them back. G is right, ha's left. That's just universal horse language.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, G and ha are right and left. I'll shout hey if I want them to like pay attention to me, like if something's happening that changes their focus. I just yell hey and they're like, yo hey, focus on me again. And then back is back up. Back, 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 back. And step, I use step as a turn in place. Back, back, respect. Ooh. And I'm very light with my reins. Some people like a lot of contact. I don't like any contact. So I've got probably seven or eight of my horses to go in just halters with no bits. Just because I find it easier when it's freezing cold out. You don't have to put a cold bit in their mouth after lunch, and you're not pulling on them at all, and they respect it just as well. So there's lots of different ways to control them, but I prefer a very light bit, light pressure. You tell, then demand. So you ask them with your voice, you tell them with light pressure, and then if they don't listen, you demand them with your, with their bit. So. Thank you, lady.
Adios, amigo. That sure was a super. You guys enjoyed it. I've said goodbye a couple times in this video, but for real, goodbye. Visit our website, carrytrainer.com, for information about classes held throughout the U.S., Carry Trainer apparel, and upcoming projects. You can also email us at training@carrytrainer.com for information about setting up your own private course or speaking engagement. Training@carrytrainer.com or carrytrainer.com. So in contrast to what we've just been watching, here is a commercial logging operation with big old trucks, and I'm sure they had machinery to move those logs to get them to the landing. This is what he's talking about, a landing. They brought all the trucks out so that now the trucking operator can pick them up and move them. And you can see the difference in what they had to do to create that space even to get the truck in. Pretty dang cool.